Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, in the NF world. Sorry, in the NFL world, and welcome to the NFL Insiders on the Spanglish Sports World Network and the Spanglish World Network here on Single TV's channels 249 and 250, as well as in all the social media platforms that you can imagine. We have 130 of them. I just want to remind you that Single TV can be found across Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku and Roku sticks, and in all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Remember to please go back once you watch this show. Go back to the both app iOS and Apple stores, and iOS and Google and Chrome, Android stores, and leave us a comment and a review and a rating to tell us how we did and to tell us what we can change to improve your enjoyment. So, like I said, welcome to this show. It's the NFL Insiders, and I am honored to have again my co-hosts in this show, Mr. Scott Churchson and Mr. Obi Spencer, who
He's kind of rocking out that look today too. I like with the hat, and he's actually tilted to the side, looking all suave with the gray, the gray hat and the gray shirt and everything. He's got like a thing going there. I like it.
yeah, Obi is Obi.
Call this style, Scott. I mean, fashion and style. It's not a thing. It's a look.
I'm sorry. You've done a good fashion thing. How's that? You're bros. That'll teach you.
But the funny part is that Obi always gets the fashion thing going, and outdoes us all the time for some reason. I don't know why. But guys, I don't know where to start. Yes, it's an NFL week off. Let's put it that way. Yes, there is a game going on, but does it have really importance in the NFL? Nah. It's probably a shutout. Is that, as everybody knows, today is the Pro Bowl. What you could consider some of the best players in the game playing against each other from both conferences, but we are going to drift off that because it's nothing that is concerning to what's happening next week, which is the big week, and we are going to leave that excitement for next week, and that is the Super Bowl. Today we are going to do something that is a little bit unorthodox for the three of us, and we are going to examine the competitors of the NFL. One being, as Scott is kindly showing us the cup there, the USFL. And then, as you know, the resurrected league, the XFL, that was resurrected by Dwayne Johnson and his ex-wife. And we looked north of the border to the CFL, the Canadian Football League, that is also what we can call a little bit of a training camp for future NFL players, because that's what we can call the CFL truly. Although many Canadians would kill me because I tried to say it that way, but we have to be realistic of what it is. It's a league that is competing against the NFL, but it's a training ground for the athletes that want to make the NFL at some point in time in their careers. Anyways, guys, Scott, let's start with the USFL, because the USFL has resurrected, and that it's going to be a very competitive league from what it looks.
First of all, I have to say that basically for this specific show, and I've been saving this, today is more going to be the NUSX CFL Insider, covering every single league in this particular case. But yes, I didn't mean to cut you off on that. I apologize. But I loved the USFL when I was a kid. You had some of the future Hall of Famers in the NFL, Jim Kelly, you had Reggie White, Steve Young. For me and my beloved New Jersey Generals, and by the way, this is an authentic cup from 1984. When you fill up at a 7-Eleven for gas, you got a free cup for the USFL and the New Jersey Generals. Broke my heart when the league was gone. Crushed me as a kid. So I have to say I'm absolutely 100% fired up that this league is back and the New Jersey Generals are back. It means a surprising amount to me that actually I didn't think this would impact me the way it did. But here we are 36, arguably 37 years after the league was done. And it's back again. So I think in this case, you've got some quality, you got some quality coaches in there. I mean, Jeff Fisher, I think, is highlighting basically in this case in the long Tennessee record. For my Generals, Mike Riley is the head coach. Mike Riley is the one who is ignominious, shall we say, in San Diego for his 3 years over there, going 8-8, 1-15, and 5-11. That's the team, leading my helm. But all of the original 8, they got 8 of the original teams back. So Philadelphia, the Stars, Memphis, the Showboats, the Maulers are back. Everybody is back from this, to bring the nostalgia factor back in what ended up being kind of a tight little system where they're all going to be playing in Birmingham, which is unique, but from a COVID perspective, is kind of a smart idea. Plus, obviously, saves a ton of money on the travel, maybe the hotel a little bit too. There's a lot of factors that can work in there that can help this fledgling league make money. It's coming in at a good time right now because baseball, who knows what's going to happen with baseball right now. Hockey, NBA will be kind of in its playoffs when the league starts, and then should filter over at that point. But you have what I suspect will be another XFL level rating system. You saw the ratings that there were in a lot of places. St. Louis was, basically for the XFL was drawing 1 million viewers a game. That's what they're going to try and go for here. And April 16th, on Fox and NBC, a simulcast, the Generals are back. And I got to say, I'm really fired up about this because it's bringing back the nostalgic factor for me in a hardcore way.
All right, so I can take the complete opposite end of the spectrum on this. So look, I love football. I love the NFL. I even like the college game. I don't like bad football. I don't care how much the players interact with the fans and give it a good experience. Now you're calling this USFL because it's a brand that existed. So you get people like Scott excited about it. But this has zero connection to USFL other than paying rights to it. You got all the teams based in Alabama. Why do I, as a person out of the Philadelphia metro area, care about the Philadelphia Stars at all? I might care about watching the football, but why give it teams? This is an opportunity, by the way, to fix how team sports are built. Because right now, when we're going to talk about the NFL for a second. Right now, you have this guy. His name is Roger Goodell. He is the commissioner of the NFL. Problem for this guy is he works for 32 different owners with 32 different things. And we see how that's working out this week with Brian Flores' issues. Not even Delaware stuff. But it's obvious his answers are because he's working for 32 different guys with 32 different things. Here you had a chance to say, we're buying this old product. All right, we're going to give these names from places. Let's not make it 8 owners. Let's make it 1 owner of 8 different teams and work to keep the league constantly competitive, constantly interesting. The salaries are pretty much locked in. You're giving these – now, here's what bothers me. You're giving people free tuition and $45,000 a year. Right now, I guarantee you I would get paid more on an NIL contract to play in college where I still get a free scholarship. So you're not going to get better college kids. But if you want to see a minor league, you could do that. But make it 1 owner. Make it so players can move around year in and year out so that you get competitive every year. And then when there's a problem on hiring, you don't have one guy going, well, we need to do better, knowing the 30 other guys have their own opinions. You got Mara. I'm never. I'm sure some of those guys are never hiring an African American coach because at least one of those 30 is a hardcore racist. And there's another one right now who's going, next time I get rid of my coach, I'm definitely hiring an African American to look good. So forget it. Make it. There's so many options and opportunities to make this a bigger, better league. attack some of the problems that go on in all the other major franchises and to build this. I get that it's COVID. I get why we're going to keep it all in Alabama. It's a super cheap opportunity to make things fast and quick and try to get this league off the ground. But imagine if the Philadelphia Stars in Alabama were all because the people were within a certain radius of Philadelphia. And you went and you spread your cities all apart as opposed to having Philly, Pittsburgh, New Jersey, which is a whole state, in New York. Like, what if you made a team from Maine? Because it doesn't matter because they're all playing in whatever. And it became, these are kids who are out of the Maine area. And this is the mile radius where it comes in. And this is St. Louis. And these are the folks from St. Louis. And we have an Austin that covers most of Texas and some of Arizona. Could have done so much cooler, but they just kept an old brand. And this will go with my XFL as well. They could go this way as well. Do it differently than they're doing it now.
So,
okay, go ahead, please.
So one of the things that I like about the, I'll go both ways. One of the things that I like is that you are getting back the USFL, which was a league that people actually love because of the closeness to the players, how the fans interacted directly with the product.
Mm-hmm.
That part I love. The one part I always had a contention with is, why would you compete directly in the markets that don't need, well, I understand Michigan, because Michigan doesn't have a team.
Mm-hmm.
Really. Detroit Lions are not so the Michigan Panthers gave him an escape in a certain way. But Philadelphia has a great team. New Jersey, you could say that they have a team.
That's a stretch if you're talking hockey.
Yeah, but Tampa Bay, Tampa doesn't need a team. Tampa Bay has a NFL champion. Why do you need to put them in cities that don't need that game? Bring them to cities that don't, and that's one of the things I love about the XFL, because they have concentrated around cities that don't have football as a whole.
They could do that, and I do see your point, because all the places, like I said, Maine, all they have is Maine college football with the Black Bears, But places, and I've mentioned this before on Sports Den, places like, I throw it out there, Montana, Idaho. Places that don't actually have a team. You have 1,000% point on that. I'll give you that. This is one of those this is a wax nostalgic society now, where everybody basically has to have a callback and a reference. And you know what? In my case, damn, it worked. Because here we are 35 years old later, and my childhood is now being revisited again because of the fact that my old team that I loved, Herschel Walker, Brian Sipe, Doug Flutie, Harry, Maurice Carthon, all those guys are back again, and it was huge for me. So you play that sort of angle there. In this area, I will say that the New Jersey Generals are not the high point of this league. I can feel it from the fan base right now. But for me, like I said, it works, and that's where I think they're trying to build this. Now, it's going to be interesting next year when the XFL comes back, how much that's going to impact what's going to happen here. I don't know. But for right now, I'm willing to ride the tide with this. Obi, you mentioned the fact that you could, get an education, all this kind of stuff, make more in the NIL. But the only difference I'm going to say to that is you're not going to get the level of national exposure that you're going to get on the USFL level, because these games are national broadcast. So you get that advantage too. And the idea, basically, the college scholarships and everything that's involved there, I think is a great backup for this, because a lot of players in every league, in any sport, they throw their all into it and have no backup plan when they don't reach the professional level. And that's where I think this is huge.
So I'm going to take we are a nostalgia society. I'd argue that, by the way, if you're saying that's new, that's not true. I mean, you and I watched the movie growing up, I'm sure, called The Color of Money, which was in itself just a nostalgia piece that, we forget that, they've been doing this forever. Like, what was good long ago? Let's remake it. How many times? That movie they just remade with Lady Gaga has been remade more times than I can count.
God.
Because we've always been a let's throw it back. But I also think that the original XFL, it had great excitement. It turned out not to be a good product, but it had great excitement. And part of that excitement was, hey, we've seen football fail before. Will it fail? Oh, it's going to be extreme. We used the X, which was just about done with X Games. They probably would have been better with IFL. They missed the change of letter. But again, I think Eduardo's on point with this. Whatever that league that really wants to take off, probably even I really think you can take advantage of some of the things that are not being realized. So right now we have in all sports. So we have a Philadelphia team, a New York team, and we all talk about free agents, this, that, the other thing. If all of the teams are owned by one owner and the pricing scale is all locked in, then we can say this team is regionally. Here are the kids from New Jersey who didn't get into college, who want to make it into the pros. They're the Jersey Generals. And here are the kids in New York State who didn't choose to go to college, and they're the New York whatever. And here are the kids in Missouri who didn't, and go with do something different to really make it what's going on here. This feels like there's been several failed attempts to get football out of football season. The only successful one was the USFL, and then they messed up, and we can argue whose fault that was. They had a product that was successful off season, but it hasn't happened since because the NFL will not let it happen. They are aware of it. The owners who are here now, for everything else about them being old, they remember almost getting beaten by the USFL. And so they know that anytime someone starts off a league, they get their paws in it right away. So it's part of them. Oh, it's a feeder league. It's a feeder league. It's a feeder league. And I think I'd like to see someone try to go back to what the USFL. No, we're not a feeder league. We're a competitive league. We are going to pay Lamar Jackson all the money in the world if he shifts over to this league. We have real free agents coming here and coming to our sport because that is what made the USFL so good. The number of guys who you just mentioned who were all pros and Super Bowl winners and NFL Hall of Famers who took the chance of going for the money in the other league first. And that's what made it great. It was a really high quality football, not the guys who can't even get a college scholarship trying to take their shot. It's hard to watch bad football. It really is. So that's my concern. Plus, it's only in Alabama, which means it's $14 a ticket. That's great. But I'm not flying, driving, or busing to Alabama to watch a Philadelphia team. So for how many years am I not even going to be connected to the Philadelphia team because it's in Alabama? Like the Soul, when they were here for arena football, you could connect to them. They were big. They had Bon Jovi and they had Jaws. That felt like South Jersey and Philadelphia owned the team. It was exciting. It was palatable when they won the championship. There were tons of happy people. The quarterback who won that championship, people were begging for him to come try out for the Eagles. But that was right in our backyard. That was happening here, and it felt like a Philly thing. It really did. This is who's the coach? And one more complaint I have about this USFL. All the games are in Alabama. I guess every team's not playing every week, but I can't even figure out what the heck the schedule is. Even when you go to buy tickets, I don't know what game I'm buying. I was like, what game could I don't know. I know it's $14, but that's all I know. So I think they got a lot of work to do. Maybe I would be glad to be in a year or two talking about let's get ready for spring football. And it's whether it's USFL, the XFL, the new FL, the LFN, I don't care what the letters are. It'd be great. But I'm not being excited just because it's some old brand that, yes, I was attracted to. And yes, New Jersey had a great team. And, at the time, it wasn't just that they were the New Jersey Generals. So I think New Jersey has a lot here because we had teams playing in New York, calling themselves New York, playing in New Jersey. And it was a little sickening. It hurt. It was like, you guys should be out. We're in New York. You're not New York. You're New Jersey. Everybody in New Jersey do it.
All of New Jersey know that argument. Every one of us.
Yeah. So to have a football team that claimed to be from New Jersey was exciting and great. And other teams have leveled that in the going forward, including the Devils. But as far as I'm concerned, I have more excitement about talking about what it's not than talking about what it is.
I got that vibe there. I kind of get the sense that you don't care. Yes, it's waxing nostalgic on my side of it. I get it. And you have a point because there are no games to be able to see. And I see that point also. Here's the thing. I was at 2 of the 3 USFL championship games because they played them at basically, well, back then, Giant Stadium. When the Philadelphia Stars won, I was there. So I was very, very ingrained into the USFL as a whole. So it broke my heart in '86, when they got Jim Kelly and the league folded because Houston merged with with New Jersey. God, I even said it myself, and it crushed me. Granted, the Mets won the World Series that year, so it offset it, but it still sucked. And who knows? This might be an AAF level league, which was honestly weak. Who knows what's going to happen here? I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen with the XFL and how that's going to go? Because obviously you got the Rock behind that one. So this might be a one and done year, and then it all merges into the XFL, CFL. I don't know. In this case here, the draft is set for February 22nd. It's a tiered draft, which I think is a solid idea. First round quarterbacks. Second round, you have 10 rounds of offensive positions, offensive linemen, 10 rounds. 7 basic or front 7. Defensive, linemen and linebackers for 10 rounds, defensive backs for 10 rounds, and then 30 rounds left over. Ultimately, that's going to be weaning down to 45 players on each team, 7 practice squad, and 38 actual players. So the system is now sort of, like I said, in place. Who knows what's going to happen with it? But like I said, I like it. I think in this case here, again, they have an opportunity by virtue of the fact that there won't be much in the way of baseball. Baseball is shooting itself in the foot hardcore. And as a result, this is something that not in the New Jersey area so much, but for a lot of the other places, Memphis is hardcore into the USFL right now. San Antonio is big into the USFL right now because they had the teams before. They've got the teams again. Memphis especially, because Memphis to Birmingham is actually not that bad of a trip. So you could see probably a lot of Showboat fans heading down there and getting the tickets, which are $10 on Ticketmaster plus fees and all that kind of stuff. So you could make a trip out of that. And like I said, it's got me curious and it's got me waxing nostalgic hardcore. Because like I said, this cup here, I've got about a half a dozen of these things. I had to throw one of them out because I got busted. But, back in the day when 7-Eleven used to give this if you paid a certain amount of money, I have had this thing for almost 40 years now. So, like I said, I got to admit I'm curious. But what it does against the CFL and the XFL next year that's going to be a different conversation entirely because, again, you have The Rock and Danny Garcia leading that one. So will they go up against, the XFL and who knows, the New York Guardians, who, again, play, at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey 2020? I don't know, but like I said, I'm happy it's back. This is, like I said, in this case, we have no real football today. You said the Pro Bowl, but the Pro Bowl is really just more of an exhibition more than anything else. It's not. Nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. So I got to admit, I'm curious to see what the TV ratings for that's going to be by comparison to NBA, NCAA, and everything else. I don't think it's going to be that high. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to tell you how little people care about the Pro Bowl. And someplace I tweeted this out yesterday. Josh Allen, who was invited to the Pro Bowl, is playing golf in the Pebble Beach program this week. That is what Josh Allen wanted to do this week, as opposed to go to Las Vegas and take part in some skills competitions and get beaten around a little bit. He's like, I'll go play golf in the pro-am.
And what's funny?
What?
If he's playing at Pebble Beach may have better ratings on that than Pro Bowl probably would. And that's golf.
I am sure it will. It's a big tournament. That's what I was watching yesterday. That's how I know Josh Allen was in there. And I think honestly, he was the only athlete in this particular tournament that I saw, active athlete. Mia Hamm was there, made an amazing putt, had a 6-foot break on it, great putt. But everyone else was a rapper. It was Macklemore and a few other rappers I didn't know. But the only athlete I saw, granted they don't show everybody, was Josh Allen. So there is something to be said to the fact that people are when you got a guy who's I wouldn't be surprised if like Aaron Rodgers was there, but I just didn't see him. Like other football players who would turn down the Pro Bowl. That's how little it matters.
But when you compare that to how, like, say, the NHL handles their All-Star game, where you have it broken down into divisions and all this kind of stuff, it's a much more engaging All-Star game, if you will. The Pro Bowl is an All-Star game.
Yes.
It's a much more engaging All-Star game. NBA's product is with that, and how masterful a job that they do, with their All-Star game. And like I said, you look at the NFL, I think a lot of people legit just even forgot it's on today because they're focused on whatever else is out there.
I think, like I said about the USFL, crappy football sucks. And the All-Star game, call it what it is crappy football. You got defenders who don't want to play. You got against offensive linemen who don't want to play. You don't want to get hurt in an exhibition game. You just don't.
Yeah. Oh, no. So,
I mean, to me, I've watched highlights of it. When the commercial comes, I turn it off. I might put it on at 12 o'clock. The skills competition is cool to watch. But I'll be honest, I don't know how we got to the Pro Bowl, but I will be more likely to be doing my taxes today than watching the Pro Bowl today.
Yeah, I probably will have something similar on too, or do about the same.
Yeah, it's just not good football, and it doesn't need to happen.
You gonna be watching this thing?
Yeah. So, guys, let's move to Dwayne Johnson and Dana Garcia, because I don't think they bought the league just for publicity. They are trying to do something with it, but what is that something? Because we haven't seen anything aside from the naming of a brand new board of directors and a bunch of people that are supposed to be running it. Nothing else has been said. What's coming, where the teams are going to be, or if the former teams are going to stay where they were.
Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm an insider. I'm going to say this: Johnson bought it because he had the money to buy it, the time to try to run it, but it doesn't mean he's figured out how. Running a whole sports league is really hard, and you now have competition for the level of player you want with the USFL getting up and going. First mover is so important in this. You got right now. You have to try to find a way to pair with the NFL, but is the NFL already pairing with the USFL? You need a network to promise to. There's so much that goes on with this, and I'm not going to count The Rock out. He's got actual football background. This product does come from a wrestling background, which he had with Vince McMahon. It's a product that's come and gone a couple of times already. So can it be saved? Can it be made to happen? Is Dwayne Johnson the right man to make it happen? Maybe. Then I worry that Johnson bought it as an opportunity to promote some of his other products. Like, let me just put some football on, and I got this sports drink, and I think he has an alcohol as well. He's got plenty of movies he wants to broadcast. Like, what is the purpose of him starting this league? I just think that this is the kind of thing that needs your all-out attention to run a league, and that he's not going to stop making movies. He's doing so much. I'm not sure that he has the ability to do it, which is why he has to get a board and all those people now to get up to speed, figure out what he's trying to do, and make it happen. So, I'm not going to vote for yay or nay. I'm just going to say I got no idea, because until we see something, how do we know what's going on in that man's head?
I mean,
well, go ahead.
Sorry, Scott, because I want you to comment on this, because the people that are working on this league are top notch. I mean, you're talking about Ross Brandon, the former president and chief and managing partner of the Buffalo Bills. He knows the game. I mean, you cannot say that the man doesn't know the game of football. I mean, you have a guy like Rob Gerb, who was the chief financial officer of the NFL, and now he's with the XFL. I mean, these guys know their what they are doing, but yet there is no publicity. There is no structure, and I cannot understand it. Maybe, I mean, you have been around football for a while, Scott. What do you think?
Here's my take on this. I don't think he bought it just for the novelty of it or to honestly promote some of his other stuff. In 2019, The Rock made $89.1 million. That's 2019. There's other reasons that I, in fact, know about that statistic, but I can get into that another time. But in this case here, buying out that league had a purpose to it. And I don't think it necessarily was to promote his other stuff. I think it may be something that he just always had a desire to do so, and to work with your ex, by the way, let's point this out. He's working with his ex-wife. Do you have any idea how difficult that's got to be, to actually be like, to work with someone like that, as involved as they are? It's like, you got to give props to that, be able to pull that off. But my feeling is on this, because the league is not coming back until 2023 is what I'm hearing. They have time to work on the publicity side of it. He himself is enough publicity. He just has to simply say, I'm running this league, and boom, you've got a bigger league than you already have, with the USFL, and hell, I'll even say the CFL. I think it's one of those things that the CFL may have shot themselves in the foot by not launching and connecting themselves to someone as big of a brand as The Rock happens to be. I don't know if the teams are coming back. I would venture to say probably the same basic markets, although some places I've heard rumors that LA and Tampa, which did not do that well, may end up moving somewhere else. Seattle did phenomenal. New York, New Jersey did okay. I mean, kind of meh, okay. St. Louis, as I mentioned earlier, St. Louis, the Battlehawks games drew better TV ratings than the St. Louis Blues did. And the St. Louis Blues had just won the Stanley Cup the year prior. So St. Louis is a phenomenal market for football because they have been twice screwed in our lifetime, between the Rams and the Cardinals. And the Rams, I mean, let's look at what happened with that team. You come in, you come out. And they've been twice screwed over. So they need football. The Battlehawks, like I said, they were drawing 1 million viewers a game for a first-year league. The Rock knows this. And he knows what he can make happen with something like that. This is not a hobby. This is not, to me, something that he's using to promote other products and build some. This is something that I think he wants to build into something legit. And he wants to use it as a proper be-all and end-all training ground to, who knows, take over the CFL, and force the CFL to merge. I think it's possible. I think the CFL is going to hurt its brand right now with everything that's going on in the XFL. I have talked to some of the players from the CFL, and they have talked about the difficulty of being able to move from one league to the other because of how the contracts are working. But that's something where if players are looking at both leagues there and they're seeing the kind of exposure The Rock can get with the XFL, then they may start to actually move to the XFL and away from the CFL because they're getting a national U.S. audience. That was the big sell in 2020, that these guys made a salary of 55 to upwards of $500,000, depending on how, what position they played and everything like that. But they were able to play on ABC, Fox, FS1. They were able to play in national markets and get the national exposure to get themselves back up to the NFL level. No offense to the CFL. The Grey Cup and the CFL has been around for decades. But down here in the United States, nobody watches it. And that's what you want if you're trying to get back to the NFL level, exposure that way.
So to Eduardo's initial question about, look at these quality guys they have in here. And not to say anything wrong with those quality guys. Those are all great quality guys. But every single one of them was involved with a league/team that was up and rolling and had momentum driving it. So it was about keeping something that was up and running, continuing up and running.
Mm-hmm.
And continuing to build momentum and keeping your product from maturing and peaking is completely different than a startup. As all three of us fully know, based on what we're doing. A startup and keeping thumbs and rolling are two different things, and then sometimes they require different talents. So I don't know everybody's full bio. I just want to put that out there. Another thing that this has going against it, which all those folks are probably thinking about trying to work around, figure out what's best, is although on television, the number one rated events are live sports.
Mm-hmm.
Live sports in general, as Scott, you are well aware of, is losing some of its audience. So now you're trying to get a new niche. I want you to be a football fan who's not an NFL fan. And this goes to the XFL and the USFL as well, and the existence of bringing the CFL down to the US. I want you to be a football fan of a new football product against whatever else you want to do. And one of the issues I think with football in general, and I think the NFL is working on it successfully, and that is a lot of men, especially men of a particular age like myself, we kind of say, hey, honey, for the next 18, 20 weeks, you don't get me on Sunday. And the wife goes, okay. Now, I think younger men, the wife and the husband are both like, hey, kids, sit down and watch this game or you don't get us on Sunday. But there's a commitment to be made to watching a 4-hour sporting event once a week. Baseball suffers because you want me to watch a 3.5-hour event every day. And my wife's like, my spouse, let's just say
5 days a week, literally, yeah.
No. So you have to get over that hurdle. Again, without having read any of The Rock's actual statements on the XFL, I'm looking for clear-cut ones that help me to think like, oh, okay, here's what he's thinking. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what the purpose of this is other than to increase his financial situation, which is not a bad purpose, but with The Rock and watching what The Rock does as a fan of The Rock, it's, branding's important to him. He's on brand all the time. So where is this going to fit into The Rock's brand and how he's going to do it? I'm not positive. That is something The Rock is spectacular. All great, successful wrestlers who do wrestling in the wrestling world build a brand. That's what they do. That's what their whole shtick is. It's not what you do in the ring. It's what you do out of the ring. You learn how to build the brand, whatever the brand is. He turned himself from a heel into a hero. And like he's great at branding. Mazel tov to him. I don't know where this fits into his brand to the point that part of his brand is he played football in Miami, right? That's a known fact. So how much is this? Here's my money. Here's the people I hired. And are you guys doing a good job with this? And when it's time to put my name on it again, I will. Versus how much he's in the day-to-day. I don't know. Because there's a lot of day-to-day stuff starting up a football league.
Now, I want to say this, though, because I believe he bought the league for $14 million. Now, I pointed this out. In this case here, $14 million is less than 6 months of his salary. What's that? His salary. Like, I know in 2019, prior to COVID, $89.1 million, and that doesn't include residuals or anything like, or 2020, 21, anything like that. That single year, he spent basically the equivalent for us 7 weeks of our salary to buy a league. So think about it from a $50,000 standpoint.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That was his income just from movies.
Yes, his income from movies was 89.1 mil because
so that doesn't include any advertising, influencing, anything. No, yeah, $14 million, and I think that's a big point to make here, Scott, is that this was pocket change of an investment for him. So
7 weeks of 1 year salary.
How much? All right, this is 2 months. That's a big investment for anybody. 2 months salary, but with 2 months of his, and that's probably less of his actual salary than the 2 months. So again, how invested is he in this versus how much is he just, when the time is right, we'll put my face out there?
Well, see, I think in this case, and Eduardo put this out there, and I think this is right. In this case, if he doesn't have the time because he's doing insert action movie here, he has leadership in place between Danny, between, basically the people he's hired and brought in. He has experienced, trained people. There's an old saying that says you don't always need to know what you don't always need to know what's on top. You need to have available what's on tap. He has on tap people that frankly are probably better than he is. But that's the big thing. You don't have to be the best. You have to just be smart and bring in the best. And that's what The Rock has done here.
Yeah, so I think we agree, except our interpretation of this is, my interpretation is he's an investor who's willing to use his face and clout when the time is right, but he's not moving and shaking in the parts. That is my opinion of what I'm seeing here. Here's some money. You guys know what you're doing. You guys go do this. And when it's time to smell what The Rock is cooking and promote this,
God,
The
that's old.
Rock is going to come out and start cooking. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you and I kind of agree. So my opinion is, I don't know. The Rock's brand will be huge when The Rock is ready to get behind it. But right now, he hired the best in the price that he could get. They probably have some investment in this as well. Now go and do. So that's why it goes back to, who are these guys, and are these guys actually capable of a startup versus a continuing league? And how much is knowing the game of football, and how much is promoting a new thing? And does he have enough people who are promoting a new thing? Again, and I don't even want to say he. So that's sort of my argument. Like, yes. And yeah, it's kind of like, how much do we really think Ryan Reynolds had to do with actually making aviation gin versus, okay, you guys made a gin.
Or mobile in this case, yeah.
Right. Like, okay, here we are. Right. Here's my face.
Well, you mentioned before the Philadelphia Soul and Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi's name, Bon Jovi in general, his name is the brand. So his name being attached automatically brings in bodies. I would take it to a step further. Also, some of the Philadelphia people that hate Jersey types, he was from Central Jersey, and yes, folks, actually there was a Central Jersey, so there might have been some Philadelphia people like, yeah, he didn't invest into anything into Jersey. He invested into Philly, which is a little added dig to my home turf here, on that grounds, because, he did what he did. That's fine. But Bon Jovi bought into the Soul and added credibility by name alone. The Rock buying into the XFL gives it automatic credibility, sort of like Vince McMahon 2 years ago, because it gave the league instant cred, and turned out to be a much better product than it was 20 years ago, which, let's face it, was garbage. This one was like, okay, we're not the NFL. We're not trying to be the NFL, but we're going to be football. It's going to be AAA football, blue collar football. And that's how they marketed. That's how they advertised. And it worked. And you get the occasional person who's like, well, it's not as good as the NFL. Well, no, duh. It's not supposed to be. MLS can't match up with, European soccer. Why? Because it's not at the level. Same thing here. Same thing with any one of the three leagues there. If the players are better, they'd be in the NFL.
But Scott, let's remember that Dwayne and Dana herself are trying to do something bigger than that.
Could be.
Because they are talking with the CFL about possible unification of both games, and they are talking in Europe, the European Football League, and are they trying to make a market that will be in competition with NFL at an international level? Because the NFL hasn't expanded. They play games, exhibition games, but they haven't expanded. They haven't taken, let's say, the baseball approach to expansion, which would create a different atmosphere.
Well, let's not forget that if you go back 20, 30 years, we had European football. We had the World League, where the New Jersey, New York Hitmen, was it? Or I forget who it was. But they used to play like the Barcelona Dragons, because I remember telling my father that, New York is playing London this week. And my father would look at me like I'm crazy. I loved watching that response because as a kid, it was funny. But that league has tried. They had NFL Europe and it failed. Now, you do bring up a fantastic point that if they can expand, football into Europe, I think there's a market there with the Rock's name. Will it overtake soccer and cricket? No. Will it overtake rugby? Maybe. But it's something that's going to be a stiff competition, but it's plausible. And they would probably try to start to build it a little bit bigger than what Europe has, American football has now.
And I think it would create a market for let's say, we know that that quarterbacks and running backs try to stretch their lifetime in the NFL because there is nothing after. They don't see a future. But the XFL if it expands into Europe or Latin America or wherever into Canada, there is a future there because it gives them that exposure that they can continue their careers at a lower level and create revenue.
Sure.
But so that's where I get real worried about football. The moment you use the words lower level with football, it bothers. Look, let's talk about not lower level football. Let's talk about let's go back to what we are. Let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. I went into that game rooting for them. Jimmy G I'm like, no, don't sell Jimmy G short. That defense dominated that game, but that was barely an NFL offense I saw. I couldn't watch the game. I could barely watch the game. I thought, I cannot watch this team play Cincinnati. I cannot watch a team squander this many opportunities with this good of a defense. And that was an NFL-level quarterback who couldn't complete passes and looked horrible, missing 2 games in a row, the basic opening drive of the game, missing a beautiful pass to his wide-open tight end. Now you're going to take guys. Now Jimmy G's going to be the best quarterback in your league, and you're going to want me to watch? So when you say that, extending careers, do I really want to watch Ben Roethlisberger? I barely want to watch Ben play now. Do I want to watch Ben go 2 more years in another league just so he can get paid? And maybe Ben's probably a bad example because he probably wouldn't. It'd probably be somebody like, I don't know, do I want to watch the Sanchez play for 2 more years? No, he didn't work out. Go to TV. You had some nice seasons. So the football you just described to me, Eduardo, is not fun. Some sports, and soccer is one of them. If everybody's equally as bad, the sport itself still holds up. Basketball, if everyone is equally as bad but certain level of good, the sport holds up. Football does not hold up even if everyone is equally as bad. I don't know why. I'm not an expert on these things, but it just doesn't. It's like if you watch bad people play darts, you're like, this is horrific. Or better yet, this what was the game that got all popular with the beanbag tossing game? Like you watch your friends play, you're like, oh come on, is it my turn yet? But then you watch the pros, you're like, he just put it in the hole 12 times in a row. It's good. So I think football suffers from that. That minor league football is just not enjoyable. People missing tackles, dropping passes is not fun to watch on a consistent basis.
So,
how do you really feel, Obe? Tell me that honestly.
Look, I say this because I was so excited for the XFL. Like I was. I remember like when XFL came out. It was a time when my wife and I discovered the pure
first one, right? 2000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When the XFL first came out, it was the exact same time my wife and I had discovered the pure joy. I don't know how we never knew this before. Of when the restaurant says it's more than a 20-minute wait, just eating at the bar. Like we just went to the bar and ate, and like we did this like every weekend, and every weekend there was an XFL game on, and I was like that. This is the time, and I was like, yeah. And so, like, what were you saying? Like I couldn't even ignore her if I wanted to. The football was so bad. He Hate Me was the best part of the league, and it had its thing.
Rod Smart, yeah. He played with Philadelphia later too, but
yeah. So hey Frank.
Hey Frank.
Yeah, so I do have a problem with bad football, and so I worry about that with all these leagues. So unless you're going to go in big like the original USFL did, USFL was not bad football. It was Jim Kelly. It was Herschel Walker. Didn't Reggie White play there?
He did.
Like the biggest
Steve Young. I mentioned Steve Young was there. Yeah. Maurice Carthon. Well, the Giants. Well, I would say Doug Flutie, obviously. Brian Sipe had a long career with Cleveland.
Some of the biggest names in 80s football spent the first 3 years of their career in the USFL.
Marv Levy came from there.
Who?
Marv Levy.
Yeah.
The Bills coach. So.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. So there was not – this wasn't let's grab Fisher, who now can't get an NFL job because the second job proved he sucked, right? And that the first job he would have won a Super Bowl if he was better. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want and so now that could be why the XFL is taking so long to get its act together, because maybe somebody is saying that we have to make sure this is good football. How do we attract good football? How do we compete with even Alabama for the best recruits? Like if you compete with Alabama, now you have a minor league football league I want to watch. If you can, and now it's gotten harder because Alabama is now paying everybody who comes there $1 million for their face.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the
That's
last
what worries me about all these leagues that are football related.
with the last 3 minutes of the show, I want to touch on the CFL because it's interesting. And we were talking contracts, guys. The idea of the contracts in the USFL, the idea of the contracts in the XFL, what's there. Now, interestingly enough, the CFL for the last 5 to 10 years doesn't give contracts that are longer than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that has always boggled me because, how do you get a player to come to play for you if you're telling him the longest time I want you to play for me officially is 2 years, and we'll talk about it, but remember that the only guarantee that you have is the year that you are playing in, because we can cut you in the second year and we don't care about it.
Players obviously want security. They want to be, that's the clear, obvious benefit to a longer contract. But yeah, that hurts the brand in general because you're not giving that security and you're giving the continual, you have to prove your worth to me mentality, which when you're dealing with high pride players in any sport, NFL included, is not something that they that is in some ways an insult to be like, look what I've brought to the league. Look what my talent. Look what my performance is, and you're only giving me a 2-year deal. I want 5. I'm trucking all the way up here, to the Great White North, freezing my butt off. I want to have some security there and not a prove me attitude. To your frankly inferior to the NFL league, and that's from a player standpoint, an NFL player standpoint. That's what a lot of them are thinking right now. That no offense to the CFL, I know it's beloved up there, and I get it. And honestly, I like some of the rules better there than the NFL has. But it's in the NFL's eyes a downgrade, and in some of the players' lives, it's a downgrade. And a 2-year deal being max is an excessive downgrade.
So, interesting fact: Scott Boras, famed baseball agent, once said, based on the NFL contract structure, if I was an agent in the NFL, not one of my players would sign for more than 1 year. Because basically, we talk about, you signed a 6-year deal, but most deals are only guaranteed for 2, maybe 3 years anyway. So it is a problem in one way because there's no long term, but that's what Scott Boras, it always sunk with me. If I had an NFL player, I would never let him sign a contract for more than 1 year. And we all know one thing about Scott Boras is if you're his player, you get what's good.
You get money.
You get money. So that's the flip side to that argument. But I do hear you. I think there's something in people's minds. I don't care how good you are and confident you are. When someone says it's a 5-year deal, even though you know it's only a 2-year deal, you believe they will pay you for at least 3, maybe 4 of those years. That's part of the mentality and the part of the sense of feeling comfortable. So there is that. But I don't know if it's a problem. Again, are you really going to be able to compete with the best NFLers unless you're offering $10 million a year? Plus, I mean, what is Mahomes making? $50 million at one point guaranteed?
52 is that point, yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about, is it the time or is it the amount of money you can give? Because if I can give you $1 million for $100 million for 2 years, will you come? You make as much as Mahomes for the next 2 years, but you only get 2 years. Maybe I'll come. I know it's a limited sport, so I think the cap number, the value is more important than the years when it comes down to the final decision making.
I guess it depends if you have a family or not.
No, and you have to think also. I mean, and I'll give you a clear example. Zach Collaros, player out of the University of Cincy, happens to be a quarterback that has gone around the CFL for many years. For the last 2 seasons, he has taken his team to the Grey Cup, but he was expected to do nothing. the guy has played with a 1-year contract that he has to work for a living and makes more than he makes in the CFL. And that's sad. That's really sad that you cannot control your earnings in a league that when you are one of the prime commodities of the league. I mean, how many teams wouldn't like to have a quarterback that takes you to a championship every freaking year? You know what I mean? And guys, if I tell you the size of the contracts, you would die laughing. The biggest contract in the CFL currently is $195,000.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. And that contract is a defensive end.
And so that goes right to the point, though, right? You're making the valid point here is that I'm only paying you that much money because here's the thing. Here's what they're literally saying. You're only getting this much money because in 2 years, you still won't be good enough for the NFL. And the NFL is not going to pay you more than this $100,000. I mean, that's what that means. And then you have the problem. Is the football good enough to attract the eyes if you can't get somebody who can't leave for the NFL? And so, again, I'm not here to suggest underpaying and exploiting workers. That's not the point here. The point is, in this case, it sounds like when you tell me these guys aren't flooding into the NFL, that they are not good enough for the NFL, so they're getting paid as much as they're worth right now. When these are the guys who are looking at the XFL and the CFL and the USFL and say, I am better than those guys, but right now, with $45,000 a year for the USFL, so they're not going to come. Guys make 100, they're not going to come to the USFL. And again, these are the kind of things that the Rock and his team are looking at. How do we make this good football? Well, we pay more than the CFL. We'll get the CFLers. And can we afford to pay more than the CFL if we can't get eyes on the game? It's not easy, but that's why Flutie eventually made it to the U.S. He was better than what they were willing to pay him after 4 Grey Cups, and he was able to get a contract in San Diego and a few other teams to prove it. So there is that problem for those guys. I suggest striking and all that good stuff, but that doesn't always work either. If you're only making $100,000 a year, it's hard to give up a contract, right? If you're making $20 million a year, you're like was it Max Scherzer said? Is it Scherzer? Like, we're not going to go for federal mediation. Of course you're not. You're set for life already. You're done.
1 year and you're done.
Yeah, you don't ever need to pitch again, and your grandchildren are set. So your point of view is a little warped. On the other hand, I want other guys who are playing baseball to be in the same boat he is. So maybe not giving in is the right move for those other guys as well. Those guys who are going to get just a cup of coffee, maybe 2, after having
gentlemen,
the lifestyle of minor league baseball, which is something we've bitched about in the past. Pardon my French.
I want to thank you very much once again. Like I said, you always bring this show to a higher standard. And for everybody else, I remind you that this show can be seen across the Spanglish World Radio Network and its affiliates on social media. As well, remember that the NFL Insiders is here every single Sunday at 11 a.m. and we'll bring you the best and the latest news of what's happening in the NFL. Remember, NFL Insiders, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, but especially live it, because the NFL Insiders is sport, and sport is the NFL Insiders. In the name of Mr. Obi Spencer, Mr. Scott Cherson, my name is Eduardo Harari, and we'll see you next Sunday for the preview of the biggest game of the year,